Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Friday Night Magic Duels. This is Thelona, and we are here with a Midnight Mill deck. And instead of milling it quickly, we're milling it slowly and painfully. Well, sort of. And coffee for all those midnight enthusiasts. Also, I think I made a nice coffee label. That would go great on a coffee tin, wouldn't it? Come on. Alright, let's get into it here and check it out. Speaking of which, I think I need coffee. Anyway, no big deal. What do we have? Right. So, blue-black, it's intended, kill the stuff, and eventually get it out. Sort of thing. So, I should probably explain the basic definitions of it. We're milling with Sphinx's Tutelage and a combination with Midnight Oil, drawing extra cards a turn. So, with all that said, we'll get into the details now. So, first card is meant for aggro control in Fatal Push, an instant for 1. Destroy target creature if its converted mana cost is 2 or less. And with Revolt, which not necessarily is going to very much happen, destroy that creature if its converted mana cost is 4 or less instead of permanent you control left the battlefield this turn. Like I said, not going to happen too much, but it's possible. Call of the Bloodline is an enchantment for 2 mana in black. You can pay 1 and discard a card. Put a 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens with lifelink on the battlefield. Activate this ability only once each turn. So, this is intended to just make a chump blocker and gain life. You know, make those trades or chumps in a way that's going to really not let aggro do too much to you. Also, we need to be able to dump cards in our hand at one point in time. And next up is Grasp of Darkness for double black. Is an instant where target creature gets -4/-4 till end of turn. That's just meant to get rid of aggro. Our aggro line is pretty much covered. I see so much of it that I am prepared for it in general. Next up is Take Inventory, one of our first card draw spells in this deck. And for 2 mana as a sorcery, you can draw a card, then draw cards equal to the number of cards named Take Inventory in your graveyard. So, the later the game gets, the more it does, basically. And with all these instants and sorceries and removal, we have Diabolic Tutor, an artifact for 3. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get 2 energy, and you can pay 5 energy and tap it to deal 3 damage to target creature or player. Meant for a very large amount of board control in that regards. And the basis of the deck, Sphinx's Tutelage for 3 mana and enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent puts the top 2 cards of his or her library in his or her graveyard. If they're both non-land cards that share a color, repeat this process. And you can pay 6 to draw a card and discard a card. So, yep, we're just going to the point where if the opponent can't draw a card, they lose, basically. Next up is Murder for 3 mana. Is an instant where you destroy target creature. Meant to get a little bit of the fattier fat out of the way. And next up is Ghirapur Orrery. Remember where I said we would be discarding cards at a certain point? So for 4 mana, it is an artifact. Each player may play an additional land on his or her turns at the beginning of each player's upkeep. If that player has no cards in hand, that player draws 3 cards. So the intention is, well, we'll mention the next card, and then we'll note the entire system on that. So Midnight Oil for 2 and 2 black is an enchantment. Midnight Oil enters the battlefield with 7 hour counters on it. Beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card and remove 2 hour counters from Midnight Oil. Your maximum hand size is equal to the number of hour counters on Midnight Oil. And whenever you discard a card, you lose a life. So basically, this is going to reduce your hand size to 0 for Orrery eventually, so that during your upkeep, you're drawing additional cards and slamming down a ton with Tutelage. And it's all passive at that point in time, so that you don't actually have to really do anything. Then you have Call of the Bloodline to kind of make sure that you get there. So you're down to 0 cards. Say you got that one last card in hand and just can't do much with it. You just jam this down and you've got blockers. That's what it is. It gives you the blockers, and then when you need to get the card draw going with Tutelage, you can set it up out with this, and it'll be a bunch of passive card draw every single turn. Next up is Glimmer of Genius, because a mill deck can't run without one of these, I swear. For 4 mana, is an instant, scry 2, then draw 2 cards, and you get 2 energy counters. Just a good card draw spell all around, and gives us energy for our Diabolic Tower, if we happen to have it down, or just energy for it in general. Next up is Yahenni's Expertise for 4 mana sorcery. All creatures get -3/-3 till end of turn, and you may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So this is meant for the go wide strategies, so that you can take them out. You know, if they're going a little wide early and you just don't have a convenient however you want to do it, you can slam that down. Maybe one guy that doesn't get targeted by Yahenni, so you got the murder, or maybe you want to advance your board state in Tutelage and Diabolic Tower. So there's plenty of options, or maybe you just want to move into your next answer and be prepared. Plenty of options for the free spell on Yahenni's Expertise while clearing the board. And I swear there's a dog in this apartment building that is barking like crazy. Anyways, next up is Diabolic Tutor. The reason why I went with black for this particular deck in general, for 4 mana, search your library for a card and put that card in your hand, then shuffle your library. So, it's a lot of times when people say, well, Tutelage deck loses because you have all your Tutelages in the bottom. Well, yeah, they might be in the bottom, but your tutor may not be. So you can at least get there eventually, is the means to that. And moving on for clearing the board, Brawl's Expertise for 5 mana in blue is a sorcery. Return up to 3 target artifacts and/or creatures to their owner's hands, and you may cast a card with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So much like Yahenni's, it's just clearing the board a little. So you're trying to find the tutelage, you kind of just use your Brawl's Expertise as a little bit of a trump. You can Diabolic Tutor to go get it and finally get your system going. Or if you already have one, I mean, you can take the time to slam down Midnight Oil, which, you know, technically is to do nothing enchantment until it starts going. You may not be able to take a turn off. That allows you to kind of get that turn off to do it. Same with the Orrery and the Glimmer. I mean, you want the time to be able to do it, and that's what it gives you. It gives you the time to be able to cast those kind of things. And last up is my only defense I have against Super Friends, but I mean, it does do a little bit of work towards that regards. I mean, we are drawing cards. We can tutor for it if it gets to that point in the game where something's about to ultimate that we don't want to. Since we aren't really strong against Super Friends, this is the thing that's hopefully going to keep us going a little bit longer. So Crush Your Tentacles for 6 mana sorcery with a surge cost of 5, where if we cast another spell this turn, we get to, cast this for 5 mana. Additionally, with the effect, return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. If Crush Your Tentacles surge cost was paid, put an 8/8 blue octopus creature token onto the battlefield. I've almost won with the octopus alone. I mean, you could have a freaky situation where that happens. I've wiped the board, had the octopus, and and suddenly I just control the board with Yahenni's and murders and whatnot like that. It is possible. It's just not something that, it's not a win condition. We're basically all in on the mill plan, and yeah, like I said, I never actually got there, so it's all in on the mill plan, so decide how you want how to go there. But in general, it's meant as a slow and painful mill with plenty of creature removal. It's mill versus aggro, and it does pretty well against that in that regard. You know how it works. This deck runs with a mid-range strategy, so you know you run the rock paper scissors thing, beats aggro, weak to control. Yeah, you know, counter spells really hurt, obviously, because your tricks are all allocated into 3 cards. So there is that. You have to kind of worry about that. with that said, let's get into the land cards. It's mostly simple base. We have 6 islands and 7 swamps. They're fairly easy to get out with the card draw. 2 sunken hollows. They may be tapped, may not, it doesn't matter. For blue and black, Drowned Catacomb for blue and black, Aether Hub because of the energy sub theme with the Dynavolts, just there to make sure that we get more energy quicker, and 4 Evolving Wilds to make sure we get our double colors, and 1 Submerged Boneyard just for good measure on that regards. So that's the deck. It's, as far as I can tell, still somewhat unrefined, and there are options to cover some more holes in its weaknesses, and I'm not sure how to go about it quite yet, so go ahead and give your suggestions and what you think might work. Like I said, Super Friends / Control is a little bit challenging, and that would be permanent bounce in this regard, since we don't have any of our lovely Planeswalker removal in black in duels, unfortunately. So, alright, hope you guys enjoyed. The gameplay is down in the description, and I'll see you later. Bye.